Greetings, friends. My name is Gemini Brett, and I'm so happy to be here teaching astronomy for astrologers. First of all, it's an honor to be included amongst this stellar crew of astrologers here at YouTube University. And secondly, I'm just so happy that Stormie Grace has made astronomy part of your curriculum. We're going to be drinking a very old pu'er tea, a tea from leaves that are almost as old as me, and from a tree that is much, much older, a tree that has been reaching its branches into the heavens for hundreds of years. Only why? Only because it has also been rooting deep into the earth. So we're going to use this teacup. This is the earth glyph, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. And my friends, that's what an astrology chart is. So I aim to show that to you. So much of my work is devoted to helping astrologers learn to see the chart in the sky and the sky in the chart. For us to not only look down and look into these small screens, but to look up and look into this big screen and reconnect that love of the wonders of the heavens. You know, I mean, this is where it all comes from. This is the bones of our craft. We have the phases of the moon carved into animal bones from tens of thousands of years ago. Paintings of zodiacal constellations in the ancient caves of Lascaux. We've been at this for a long time, much longer than any book we've found, or even the written word itself, engaging with the mysteries of the sky and understanding that as the planetas, the wanderers, move about the constellations and the signs, there are going to be energetic experiences of those astronomical cycles here on Earth. This tea is called Tiger's Nest by a friend of mine, which is also probably an appropriate name because sometimes there's a fear of astronomy and even a fear of the night sky itself. The fear of science, right? So fear not, this is not going to be just some nerdy break out the longest telescope possible and narrow our view into some tiny sliver of the sky to gaze at something so far away and so long ago. I'm talking about a sacred astronomical practice, the practice that I feel was honored by the ancient ones who built the circles of stone and the pyramid sites that transmit how we've been doing this for so long. I'm talking about laying on our backs on the wet grass of our Mother Earth and opening our gaze wide to receive all of the sky and to celebrate that marriage of heaven and earth. And the marriage of astrology and astronomy, which not long ago were one and the same. What has happened? What was this strange divorce? And how can we bring them back together? We can remember the very real astronomy of astrology. So that's what I'm here for. There will be a good amount of information. We're going to look at a lot of pretty pictures and animations that I've created. And so I encourage you actually to, if you feel that drop and the thing that makes you say, I encourage you to just pause this, you know, go have a walk in the woods, let it integrate, let it sink into the body mind. Right? That's really what we're after here, is to have a sentient, a sensual experience of the heavenly happenings. And, you know, that is astronomy, earth astronomy, right? Actually, astrology is two things. It is astronomy. And that's the quantity of the heavenly happenings. That's the measurable, the stuff we can put a ruler to. And correspondences, the quality of those heavenly happenings, the mysterious, you know, how that measurable dances you or dances me. So for us to really tune into and have an intimate and personal experience of an expression of the quality, let's get our feet on the ground and learn something about the quantity, the measurable, but not just in some, you know, nerdy science class kind of way. but in a reverent way, to enter the temple of the living sky. This is why I call my work, or at least this side of my work, sacred astronomy. And true to Hermes, whose glyph you see here, but with Earth on his mind, who speaks in the tablets about the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world, I think I will deliver this transmission. It's a short transmission for me. Usually I take 6 weeks to transmit astronomy for astrologers. So of course I'm not going to do all that here, but we're going to take a few bits, and I think I'll transmit it in 3 parts. And we begin with the signs. What is a chart? But an expression of a moment in time, a unique moment in time from a unique place in space, usually Earth. Such is the case for this chart, which is the birth chart of, you probably guessed it looking at this beautiful background, the nativity of the very enigmatic Salvador Dali, who was born in Figueres, Spain in the month of May on the 11th in 1904 at 8:45 a.m. with the sun climbing in the eastern sky. And the moon, also visible, weather depending. Probably we wouldn't see this text that spelled moon hovering in the heavens. That's a remnant of this wonderful astronomy software called Stellarium, which will be one of the vehicles we use as we play today. You can download Stellarium planetarium software for free at stellarium.org. You can see the URL there in the lower left. It's free for Mac and PC. It's a beautiful thing to look at your chart and to look at the planetarium version of that moment you were born and that place you were born side by side. You learn a lot from it. And of course, all softwares take a while to get into, right? But if you choose to pursue Stellarium, you'll find 5 different Stellarium for Astrologers videos that I made on YouTube simply by searching Gemini Brett Stellarium for Astrologers. A chart lets us see way more than we can see with our eyes. You know, think about it. When the sun is up, when it's daytime, you can't see any of the stars. We can see the moon sometimes during the day, right? I've seen Venus with my naked eye during the day. That's a rare and amazing thing. But when the star of ours, called the sun, is in the sky, you know, you will go blind trying to figure out which of the constellations it's aligned to. It's a very important thing to know, right? Star is like, sun is like great mystery. But the software lets us play, and just like our astrology charts, Stellarium, this planetarium software, can let us see more than is possible with our naked eye. It will even, like our charts do, let us see below the ground and see planets like Neptune that can't be seen with the naked eye. Planets, planetas, which means wanderers. And you know, the luminaries, the moon and the sun, were included in that group by the ancients. The 7 visible planetas are sun and moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. We needed a telescope to really see Uranus and Neptune and Pluto and beyond. I should say Uranus sometimes can be seen with the naked eye. I've been initiated with that one too. But anyway, I digress. So notice that these planetas, these wanderers, which wander against the backdrop of the so-called fixed stars, the constellations wandering through the signs of the zodiac. Notice that they're arranged here in this curve, this arc. Well, it's a plane that is called the ecliptic. Say this with me, ecliptic. All right, yes, it sounds like eclipse, and I'm glad to say that I will later during the course of this YouTube University be teaching an eclipse class, and we'll tune into some of the sacred astronomy of syzygy, of eclipses, but I'll be speaking about them astrologically and how to work with their cycles as well. But for now, the astronomy, the sacred astronomy of the thing. What is this ecliptic? Well, it is the plane of the Earth-Sun relationship. Earth's orbital plane, right? Earth should have been spinning there like 365 times, but you know, I'm a rookie at animating, okay? So the Earth orbits the sun in a year. That's the definition of a year, right? Or at least of a tropical year. And Earth's orbital path about the sun creates a plane. This is called the ecliptic. So it's the plane of the year, the plane of Earth's orbit, or the plane, as I like to say, of the Earth-Sun relationship. Now, if we extend this plane out towards infinity, we find that it is embraced by 12 very special constellations. And this is what sets these constellations, the zodiacal constellations, apart. They are the ones that embrace the ecliptic plane. So as Earth is orbiting the sun will always see Earth aligned to one of these very special 12 constellations of the zodiac. The astronomer's definition of the zodiac is these constellations, or is basically this ecliptic plane and like 8 degrees above and below, or north and south of that plane, right? Where these special constellations, these 12 constellations dwell. Some very modern astronomers unwisely claim there's 13. I suggest you avoid that. We're not going to talk about it today, perhaps another time. You can find some of the work that I've shared about the kind of ridiculousness of the so-called 13th sign on YouTube if you have a look around. Anyway, the ecliptic plane is embraced by these very special constellations, the constellations of the zodiac. And again, as Earth is orbiting the sun in a year, the sun is always going to see the Earth moving against the backdrop of these particular stars, the stars of the zodiacal constellations. Now, this means that Earth is also going to see the sun moving through these constellations, right? I mean, the truth is we can't see the sun aligned to anything because the sun is so bright. But there are ways to play. For example, if we're at this time of the year where the sun is aligned with the Ram constellation, that means before the sun rises to illuminate the earth but hide the sky, before the dawn light takes the stars from our view, before the Ram rises when the sun is aligned with that constellation, the fish rise. And so if you see the fish and then the sky gets too bright, you know the sun is in the next constellation. On that same day, the sun is going to set with the Ram too, and then the sky starts getting dark after dusk, and we'll see some stars of the bull, right? So that's one way where we can't really see which constellations the sun is aligned to, but if we look before sunrise, we'll see the constellation that the sun is aligned with before, in this case, the Ram. Or if we look after sunset, the constellation that's after the Ram, the constellation where the sun will go next. The sun, from Earth's point of view, moves against this backdrop of stars in a year, from the Ram to the bull, to the twins, to the crab, to the lion, to the priestess, moving around this 360-degree circle. Scale, scorpion, archer, sea goat, water bearer, and the fishes, and then back to the Ram, moving around this 360-degree circle called the ecliptic, the plane of the Earth-Sun relationship, the year plane. Earth will experience sun moving through that backdrop of fixed stars of zodiacal constellations in a year. And a year, as we know, is 365 days and change, about 365 and a quarter days to move 360 degrees. So the sun moves about 1 degree per day and spends about 30 days in each of these, well, in each of the signs, but not in each of the constellations. And friends, constellations and signs are different things, which is why, and this might have tripped you out, I'm saying Ram, bull, twins, crab, instead of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. I was taught this nomenclature by my first teachers, Daniel Gemario at the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. And I think Daniel told me this was a thing that the Theosophists do. Call the constellations by these names like Ramble twins, and call the signs by these names like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, because, say this with me, constellations and signs are different things. All right, so we're going to enter a bit of confusing territory, but I want to take it slowly. All right, we're going to speak about the 3 zodiacs. What? All right, let's break this down. The constellational zodiac we have already met. Guess what that golden circle is? You got it. The ecliptic plane, the plane of the year, the plane of the Earth-Sun relationship, which if we extend that plane towards infinity, what do we encounter? The 12 constellations of the zodiac, which embrace the ecliptic plane. So from Earth's point of view, the sun is always held by one of those 12 star groups. Does it seem like I've said that before? All right. So this is very much the astronomer's zodiac, the constellations. And they believe, let me say, when I say they, like the rationalist, materialist astronomers who tend to not have any look into astrology, but would prefer just to attack us without having any scientific approach. It sure seems. It seems that those rationalists believe that astrologers believe the constellations are the signs, because one of the principal claims that they stake in their attempt to prove astrology fake is that our signs don't align with the constellations. And the truth is, and they are very right about this, you could never have a zodiac of 12 equal signs, as we do in astrology, that is aligned to the constellations, because they vary significantly in size. The priestess, for example, describes like 46 degrees of ecliptic arc. And when we divide a circle of 360 degrees by 12, that's 30 degrees per sign, right? So 46 is like more than a sign and a half, where the mighty ram is only like 15 degrees of ecliptic arc, so like half of a sign's worth, right? So the astronomers of these types of astronomers are very correct when they say you cannot have an equal sign zodiac that is aligned perfectly to the constellations. Not at all. You can see some are huge, some are small. All right. So for the constellational zodiac, we're talking about the 12 star groups that embrace the ecliptic plane, and they vary significantly in size. And I suggest you learn your constellations, but that you also know that constellations are not the sign. So if you're out and about with like, an iPhone astronomy app, right, which is a cool thing to do, one thing that's going to be trippy for you is to say like, wait a second, why is Pisces Venus with the Aquarius constellation? But I encourage you to say, oh, Pisces Venus is with the water bearer. Signs and constellations are different things. Now, let's add another level of confusion. There's actually 2 very popular, at least worldwide, versions of what the signs are. We're going to start out east in India, where the sidereal zodiac is the way to go. Now, some Western astrologers utilize sidereal zodiacs, but by far the sidereal philosophy is most employed by Jyotish astrologers, who you may call here called Vedic astrologers in India. Okay, sidereal means of the stars. So this is a star-based zodiac in a sense. What it is actually is, and you see it here in purple on the outer ring, and these 12 equal divisions. Okay, so the sidereal zodiac is a equal division of the ecliptic circle into 12 slices of 30-degree signs that's configured to a star. So sidereal Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, all 30 degrees, all right? And They're kind of aligned to the constellations, but notice that sidereal Libra has the scales, not all of the scales, and then has a bunch of priestess foot and skirts going on, okay? You can't align an equal sign zodiac to the constellational zodiac, all right? So most popular sidereal zodiacs of our day begin with this star, or at least I should say are calibrated to this star, which in India is called Chitra. In the West, it's usually spoken by its Arabic name, which is Spica or Spica. And it's the shaft of wheat that the priestess of the heavens holds. So it's an interesting thing that the sidereal zodiac, at least the most popular sidereal zodiacs of our day, because you really could start anywhere. I mean, you could start a sidereal zodiac with the heart of the scorpion, or with the center of the galaxy, which might be an interesting place, right? With the eye of the bull, whatever. But so most popular sidereal zodiacs of our day and age are calibrated in such a way that 0 degrees sidereal Libra, here at the Virgo Libra cusp, is aligned with Chitra, Spica. And fascinatingly, that's this brightest star, and it's the alpha star of the Virgo constellation, which you know I prefer to call priestess because constellations and signs are different things. But how trippy it is that these sidereal signs are aligned in such a way that 0 Libra is calibrated to Alpha Virgo. And if that's not confusing enough, try this one. In our day and age, that same star, the brightest star of the priestess, which the astronomers call Virgo constellation, right? That same star is at 24 degrees tropical Libra. What? So this is the tropical zodiac here in the middle, in blue, in these blue divisions. And you'll see I've indicated the signs of the tropical zodiac with the glyphs, right? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. You'll see it's surrounding the Earth. Because while the sidereal zodiac is star-based, starts with a star and then 12 equal 30-degree divisions from there, right? The tropical zodiac is configured to something else. It's configured to the Earth. Okay, so we have, in a sense, a star-based zodiac, heavenly, and an Earth-based zodiac, sidereal and tropical. How is it aligned to the Earth? I'm going to show you. I do want to say this. I mean, even the constellational zodiac, where the astronomers, you know, see it as out there, and of course, those stars are out there. And the sidereal zodiac really, I think, is more configured to the cosmology that rationalists believe astrologers are after. And actually, I think most astrologers are in this place of, oh, those like stars, those signs way out there are influencing my energetic experience as an earthling. Well, if you're practicing tropical astrology, and this course, I imagine, is going to be almost entirely tropical, which many call the seasonal signs, and there's some challenges with that, which we'll get to. It's not about stars way out there. In fact, the tropical zodiac is not about any star other than our own, the sun, soul. And interestingly, even constellations, they're earthly things. The stars of the constellations are like not near one another. They just appear to be from Earth, right? So on Earth, we can connect the dots in this particular way. And you could draw them in a different way if you wanted, but either way, it's the earthly experience of these stars nearby one another that we could draw these lines and call them constellations. So I love pointing out that actually constellations themselves, while the stars are heavenly, constellations are earthly or terrestrial. And the sidereal zodiac, which is like, okay, let's start with that star and let's divide this thing into that circle into slices, right? 12 equal slices. That's very much star-based. It's very much like out there and the energy is coming here. But the tropical zodiac, I will suggest, and I will attempt to prove this to you, is starting here on Earth and then emanating outward. So you'll see here in the middle, the Earth, And you'll see these directions, north, east, south, and west, which might look upside down to you, and we'll get back to why that is. Okay, the astronomy of the tropical zodiac's a little bit trickier. It's actually very elegant. It's, by the way, very real astronomy, even though you can see that tropical Libra is like all priestess. Tropical Scorpio, like scales, some priestess feet, right? Tropical Sagittarius, that's where the scorpion lives. So the tropical signs in our day and age, and this changes with time, are off by about one constellation. And you can see here that the tropical and the sidereal, they're off by almost like one sign, right? So in our day and age, and I'm actually going to move forward in time slowly, because the truth is the tropical signs precess or move retrograde against the constellations over a very long period of time, about 26,000 years. I'll speak more about that in a bit. So around 2440, although I prefer to say 2444 because it looks cool and we can't say for sure. The tropical sign of Sagittarius will be equal to the sidereal sign of Scorpio. Trippy, right? Which has constellational scorpion and some scales and not the tail stars of the scorpion. So see, there are these three zodiacs. You can see the legend here: tropical, constellational, sidereal. Now, when all of tropical Sagittarius is aligned to all of sidereal Scorpio, that means all of tropical Pisces will be aligned to all of sidereal Aquarius. And that this very important point that we're going to be looking into here will be processing into the space that at least the sidereal zodiac calls Aquarius. And this just may be the astronomical indication for the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Harmony and understanding and all that, right? Which some people say just happened, and I'm not so sure. All right, the Earth. This is the basis, Earth astronomy, of the very real astronomy of the tropical zodiac. And, you know, there's a lot to see in this image, so we're going to break it down. We're going to start with the primary motion. What is your primary astronomical experience? Day and night. Why does that happen? Because Earth is spinning on its axis. This astronomical cycle has profound influences on your energetic experience as a human being. As anything, the flowers open to receive the light and close at night to dream and rest, and so should we. This rotation, this daily 24-hour rotation of Earth, creates literally the cardinal directions of our planet. So the axis of our rotation, the world tree, if you will, I like to call the spine of Gaia. And the plane of this rotational motion, which is different, by the way, than the ecliptic, different plane, is called the celestial equator. I prefer to call it the circle of matter, because this daily rotation of Earth, this primary motion of Earth, the day, brings us such hits as sunrise and sunset. It's a motion that's really all about Earth, our planet, matter. Okay, so the circle of matter, but the scientific name is the celestial equator. Why? Because it is simply Earth's equator projected out into the heavens. It moves through Orion's belt in our day and age. This changes over time with a strange thing called precession. And it's cool to get to know it in the sky. Of course, it's not going to be drawn in, but you can learn the stars that it's aligned to. That's something I teach in my courses. So the primary motion, okay, and this axle of the wheel, right? What is our experience on Earth of Earth's rotational motion? Well, it's the rotation of the heavens, right? It seems like we're on like a flat, still thing and the dome of the heavens is rotating about us. right? And I can show you, as the ancients did, why our experience, especially when you get around the earth and look at the sky from different places, clearly shows us that we're living on a ball and not some flat thing. And then it's the earth that spins, not the heavens. But of course, we're standing on earth, so our experience is that the heavens are spinning, right? This world tree, which defines the cardinal directions, and it's not the magnetic directions, the magnetic poles, they change over time, okay? The true directions, it moves from the heart of earth and passes through the terrestrial poles, like Santa's place, and points to the celestial poles, right? So that it just projects there. So in our day and age, we're very fortunate to have a North Star, a pole star. It's called Polaris. Hasn't been called that for long because it won't always be our pole star. I'm going to get back to that. But basically, if the axle of this wheel called Earth is pointing to that place, and our experience of Earth's spin is that the heavens are spinning, that point in the sky, it doesn't move at all. What we see at night is all of the stars spinning about it, right? And in the southern hemisphere, there's also a point that's the center of the rotation. It's called the South Celestial Pole. There's no South Star in our day and age, and other times there are. But still, if you sit, and if you're in the southern hemisphere and you sit south and you're just there and you watch the movement of the stars, you will see that everything is spinning about that one point. In the northern hemisphere, you can stare at Polaris and watch over the course of the night. You can see all the stars cruising across. It's amazing, spinning around. The Earth spins from the west to the east, which is why the sun rises in New York before it does in San Francisco. And because the Earth is spinning from the west to the east, we notice the spinning of the heavens moving east to west. Okay, so everything's rising in the east and setting in the west. And that's true whether you're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere. The wheel in the sky, right? Rising in the east, resting in the west. Okay, the primary motion, which is kind of secondary for most astrologers. Most astrologers are primarily focused on the secondary motion, which we've already met. What is the secondary motion? It is the year, right? So Earth's annual orbit of the sun. But from here on Earth, we experience that secondary motion, the ecliptic plane, the year plane, the plane of the Earth-Sun relationship as the sun orbiting us. I like to call this plane the circle of spirit because it's where the sun lives. And in 1 year's time, the sun's going to move all the way around the Earth. As the celestial equator is Earth's equator, the ecliptic passes through Earth's tropics. And these two planes are off, I guess I'll say, by 23.5 degrees. Why is that? Because the plane of Earth's rotation, the axis of Earth's rotation, is tilted by 23.5 degrees in our day and age, about 23.5 degrees, in respect to Earth's orbital plane of the sun, the ecliptic, right? And that's why our globes typically are shown like that, with that tilt going on, because they're like aligned to the ecliptic plane, which is passing through the tropics, rather than to the equatorial plane. But I have globes like that too, right? So we've got these two planes, the plane of the day and then the plane of the year. And it's the interface of those two planes, of the primary motion, the day, and the secondary motion, the year, that is the roots, the foundation of the very real astronomy of the tropical zodiac, which again has nothing to do with the constellations. The constellations can help us see where the tropical signs are in our day and age. They're cool to get to know. Like, it's cool to get to know that star Alpha Virgo, Spica, is 0 degrees sidereal Libra and 24 degrees tropical Libra. Actually, as I'm recording this, the moon is just rising here in California where I live. She's at about 20 degrees Libra right now. And tonight, or tomorrow morning, if I let myself sleep, I'm going to get outside and I'm going to see that moon aligning to that star Spica. So I thought it'd be a good time to do this. All right. So Earth's axis of rotation tilted in respect to the plane of our orbit by 23.5 degrees. And that's why you see that these two planes diverge by that amount. Now, where the two planes intersect, these are the equinox points. So the equinox points are in the tropical zodiac, 0 Aries and 0 Libra, right? So they're not about alignments with stars. They are simply the places where the ecliptic intersects the equator, where the year plane intersects the day plane. See that? And this is very real and rather elegant astronomy, okay? These points where the ecliptic most diverges from the equator, those are the solstice points. 0 Cancer and 0 Capricorn. Now we go from there and we draw in 12 signs. All right, so why that's happening astronomically might be a bit of a mystery. Most likely relates to the 12 months of the year, the 12 months of the year, right? Story for another time and not in this transmission. Maybe I'll get to this in the eclipse class, but there's actually new moon to new moon. There's 12.368 of those in a year, and it gets pretty tricky when we get into moon math magics, but I'm going to leave this here for now. We're going to look at the solar serpent. All right. So we got a little graph, science class, right? So what is this graph? This is showing the signs here, right? So it's the sun's movement throughout the year from 0 Aries tropical to Cancer to Libra to Capricorn back to Aries, equinox, June solstice, September equinox, December solstice, March equinox. And that's around the time that we're starting. Just had a little bit past 0 Aries, which by the way is a celestial longitude. Longitude is measured from the 0 Aries, tropical 0 Aries point. And it's measured in 360 degrees or measured in 12 signs, each being 30 degrees. So we're starting here at like 2.5 Aries, okay? It's gonna be very like March 23rd-ish, March 22nd, somewhere in there. And this serpent on this axis, we're seeing what's called declination. You can see it's moving between 23.5 north, 23.5 south, that tilt angle, right? Declination is the measurement, angular measurement, north or south of Earth's equator, right? So the declination at the equinox points is 0 because that's where the ecliptic intersects the equator. It's on the equator, 0, okay? But as the sun moves through Aries and Taurus and Gemini, these are what are called northern signs, where the declination is increasing north. And we get to the most northern point of the tropical zodiac, which is 0 degrees Cancer, the most northern point of the ecliptic, 23.5 degrees north declination. It's a little bit less than half a degree, 60 arc minutes in a degree, okay? So it's like 26 arc minutes. That's like about half a degree, 30 minutes, right? All right. Now this is the north point. Why can I say that? It is the point where Earth's North Pole is leaning in every moment forever. It's not leaning towards the sun always. The sun visits the place where the North Pole leans once a year. Let's reorient this to the ecliptic plane now, right? So I'm taking my globe like that, right? We were here and now it's like, okay, let's like look at this. And it's a lot easier to see in that regard that the North Pole is leaning somewhere, that the South Pole is leaning somewhere. Where does the North Pole lean? Always, 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 always to 0 degrees tropical Cancer. The South Pole is always leaning to 0 degrees tropical Capricorn. Now, when the sun moves to the Gemini Cancer cusp, 0 degrees tropical Cancer, check this out. When the sun ingresses Cancer, it's directly above the Tropic of Cancer. Makes sense, right? The tropics, tropicos, are named for the same thing that the tropical zodiac is. Tropicos in Greek means turn around. Because here, the sun, which has been moving north, she not only for these 3 months, but for the 6 months from this place, as we will see, is going to stop and turn around and start moving south. Let's dig that this way, all right? Again, the spine of Gaia, Earth's rotational axis, it defines the cardinal directions, right? So north and south, not magnetic north and south, true north and south. It's defined by Gaia's spine, and therefore east and west. Now that's a trippy thing to say, right? Because, you know, whether you're in Namibia or Brazil, north is towards the North Pole, right? But east is kind of in a different direction. Like, you know, when the sun's rising in Namibia, it sure has not risen in Brazil yet, right? So they have a different east in the sky. But these directions I'm painting here are measured from the center of the earth where we are all connected. If I reach my hands above my head, I'm the only one pointing to that star right now. And now I'm pointing to a different star because the earth is spinning quickly. But if I pull my energy down my spine and find my way to the heart of Gaia, that's where we are all one. And interestingly, it is the center of Earth from there where we measure planets in the signs. I'll speak more about that in part 2. All right, cardinal directions. Cardinal signs. This spine of Gaia, the world tree. And in our day and age, again, we are blessed to have a star on top, Polaris, North Star. We also have a north sign, and that's true in every age forever and ever, according to the directional zodiac, which is the tropical zodiac. Right? 0 degrees Cancer, sun's ingress, that's summer solstice in the northern hemisphere because the sun's up here. But it's a winter solstice for the southern hemisphere, right? So we have to be careful when we call the tropical zodiac seasonal. It is seasonal, but if we are suggesting that these signs are born only of seasonal expression, like it's often taught that Leo rules the sign, is ruled by the sun because Leo is the hottest time of the year. Well, that's not true in Brazil or Namibia, okay? You gotta be careful with that. But I can say that when the sun ingresses 0 degrees tropical Cancer, it is at its northern extreme. And tropicos, that's where it's going to turn around and start moving south. Can you see the turnarounds in the Cancer glyph? Its southern extreme is the southern sign, 0 Capricorn, where Earth's south pole is always leaning, okay? So these live at the tropics where we show them here, and the sun just every year is going to move north for 6 months and stop and turn around and move south for 6 months, crossing the equator at when? At equinox, right? Whether March equinox, 0 Aries on the way north, or September equinox, 0 tropical Libra on the way south. But I can also just say that Cancer is the northern sign, Capricorn is the southern sign. These are the cusps of these signs. We can fill in the other cardinal directions with the cusp of the other cardinal tropical signs. That's where they're called that, all right? So dig that when the sun is ingressing 0 Cancer, it's at the north point where the Earth's North Pole always leans. When the moon is there, it's at the place where the Earth's North Pole leans. Every 12 years, Jupiter will get there where the Earth's North Pole is always leaning. Every 29 and a half years, Saturn will get there. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, but let's follow the sun. All right, so Cancer, Leo, Virgo are also northern signs, northern declination, north of the equator, but they're northern signs that are getting less north, okay? So the sun at its northern extreme starts moving south, even though it's still north. So Cancer, Leo, Virgo bring us back down to the equator, equinox, 0 Libra. And at this time, the sun is due west of the center of Earth where we are all connected. Well, look at the Libra glyph. What is the energy of the west? What is the image of the west? The setting sun. Can you see it there? I will show you another time if you'd like that. All of the glyphs that we use for the tropical signs, they are transmissions of tropical astronomy. All right, let's bring the sun now to 0 Capricorn. This is the south point. Earth's south pole, always leaning towards that point. So Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, tropical signs are southern signs that go further south. And then we have Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, southern signs that are getting less south or moving north. This is where, look, the goat begins its climb. Now that's a northern hemispheric thing to say, right? Because that's at the same time where in the southern hemisphere, the sun's going to start falling in the sky. But for the northern hemisphere, this December solstice, right? Sing a Christmas song. This is when the sun is born, in the sense that we've had our longest night, right? December solstice for the northern hemisphere, where the sun is furthest from us, is the winter solstice, yeah? And then the sun will start climbing. The goat that climbs the mountain. And you know, there is something we could say that's global in that regard too, because the earth is moving north through space, but that's a little far afield. Teach you more about that if you take my course sometime. Anyway, so Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, the sun now moving northward until it gets where? Back to 0 Aries, which is due east of the center of the earth. What are the holidays that we have when the sun is due east? Easter? Passover, okay? Easter, and we have these bunnies going back to a time called Wester, named for that goddess, who is the goddess of the dawn, and in her name means east. It's a little easier to hear in this English transmission, Easter. The sun is due east of the center of the earth. Now, the Easter holiday in our day and age we do is the first Sunday after the full moon, after the sun gets to 0 Aries, and Passover is tuned to the moon as well in a very different and beautiful way. But notice this, the sun is passing over the equator and moving north. And so in the northern hemisphere, like in Jerusalem, this is, in a sense, the sun is resurrected, right? Because now coming out of the winter, northern hemisphere, right? And we're going to enter the spring where days overcome night. The light overcomes the night. And can you see how this is the sun on the cross of the equator and the ecliptic? Now that's true at 0 Libra as well, but this is the solar cross where for the northern hemisphere, for places like Jerusalem, or Israel, I guess I should say, the sun is crossing north, getting closer to the northern hemisphere. Days are growing longer than nights. Sun on the cross when the sun is easter of the center of earth. Passover, do you know the story? Where the Jews were told to paint the blood of the ram above their doors, and then the angels of death would pass over their houses that night when all the others would lose their firstborn. I mean, it's a heavy story. Why the blood of the ram? Aries. And this constellation of the ram was actually aligned east of the earth back in this day. Actually, maybe not quite yet. But look, this ram constellation, does that look like a ram to you? Here's how Stellarium works it, right? Maybe it looks like a ram's horn, kinda. Let me show you the Aries glyph. If you go out at night, and the closer you are to the equator, the more you can see this. In other places, you just got to lean your head by the degree of your latitude. If you go out at night and you sit east, what you're going to find is stars that rise south of east head to the south, and stars that rise north of east head to the north. And if you were bug-eyed enough to see all directions like that at once, you would notice that these stars are like the horns of a ram hooking around to set in the west. This eternal fountain of youth. This is the image. This is the motion of the eastern sky. This, for me, is why they, in the day, decided that the eastern constellation would be the ram. And I think that goes way back to Egypt. Actually, this is not known. It's not of our accepted history, but check out Amun-Ra, the ram. Okay. So Easter, right? And this is why this part of the zodiac is just so beautiful and so important. It is due east of the center of the earth. We're going to look in part 2 of the angles and the rising sign, which is on the eastern horizon. It's like new beginnings. Just watch a sunrise and you'll see that that is true. Well, this is the east point for the whole of earth. And so it's like the global ascendant. And so it's a big deal. We've known for a long time where that point is directed in the heavens. Is it constellations or is it sidereal? Like here we are in 2021, where we're said to be in the age of Pisces and moving towards the age of Aquarius. But first we're going to rewind and we're going to go back to 1 BC, which I like to call 1 BP, right? Because we know this is like before Christ in the kind of English transmission. How about before Pisces? Because this is when the 0 Aries tropical, the east point, precess to first align with a star of the Fishes constellation, which you have to admit looks actually more like the Aries glyph than the Aries constellation does. All right. Anyway, after that time, about 285 years later, through this energy of precession of the equinoxes, the east point was aligned to 0 degrees sidereal Aries. So it was at this time, around this time in 285 AD, most software suggests in May of that year, where the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac were one and the same. Now, many will teach that it was that way in the Hellenistic era or before. I mean, I've seen NASA teach that happened 3,000 years ago. Wrong. 285 AD, which interesting, wasn't so far off from the Council of Nicaea when this whole idea of 1 BC and 1 AD were kind of created. Okay, anyway, let's leave this here. Well, actually, let's move from there to now. This is a very slow motion. This is the so-called third motion of Earth, axial precession, which causes this phenomena of the tropical signs precessing or moving retrograde or backwards through the constellations and through the sidereal signs. So here we are in 2021, Fish's Head, age of Pisces. What is this third motion of Earth? Whew, that's a lot to look at. So let's slow down. It's color coded and we've built up to this place. Blue, I use for primary motion, Earth's daily rotation, right? Spinning in 24 hours time. And so as you can see here, I've oriented this image to the ecliptic plane, to the plane of the secondary motion, right? So we see the sidereal signs on the ecliptic here in purple as we have. And then the tropical signs rainbowed out, right? So Aries, fire, Taurus, earth, Gemini, air, Cancer, water, Leo, fire, Virgo, earth, etc. Northern signs, north of the equator. Southern signs, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, south of the equator. And we're going to meet this idea of northern and southern signs later. All right. So the secondary motion, of course, is Earth's annual orbit of the sun, or from our point of view, the sun's annual orbit about us through the constellations and the signs of the zodiac. And there's at least 2 different opinions of what signs even are. All right. The third motion, the tertiary motion, which is actually, we misspelled this. That should say tertiary motion, okay, is axial precession. What is that? Well, Earth's northern-south axis, the spine of Gaia, the world tree, over this very slow period of time. It's about 26,000 years. It's about 72 years for it just to move 1 degree of this circle. And you have to multiply that 72 years per degree times 360 degrees. You get 25,920 years, like 26,000 years. If you multiply that 72 years for 1 degree by 30 degrees, you get 2,160 years, right? So that's about the time of the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, if they, like the signs, are equal amount of times. We'll look at that in a second. So north on your street is north, okay? I mean, unless earthquake, volcano, the comet comes or something like that, okay? But where that north is pointing in the heavens changes with this axial precession, this very slow precession, which means a backwards motion. The earth orbits the sun from the west to the east. The earth spins from the west to the east. The axial precession is from the east to the west. And that's why this motion brings us in a slippage of Earth's cardinal directions or cardinal signs or tropical zodiac backwards through the constellations and through the sidereal signs. So in our day and age, we have this North Star Polaris, but half a cycle from now and like 13,000 years, it's going to be Vega. And it was 13,000 years ago because this is a great circle. This 26,000 year great year is sometimes called that, sometimes called the Platonic year. There's many names because it was observed for a long time. And of course, as where the northern pole is pointing in the sky, that's going to shift the north point, tropical Cancer, retrograde through the sidereal signs, through the constellations. Hence all the green arrows here, okay, are all tertiary motion. You see, at times there are south stars too, but not in our day and age. Like we have Polaris now. And all eyes are kind of on the east point, right? When will that precess back to Aquarius? Harmony and understanding. I hope you've heard that song. Anyway, so here, this is where we are now in 2021, the east point. When will we precess back so that all of tropical Pisces is equal to all of sidereal Aquarius, right? We had the cuter number earlier, but here we go, 2440 AD, about there. There's a lot of variables that make this hard to say exactly when. We can go a little further into the future because many kind of transmit this not as like a sidereal tropical alignment, which I'm very interested in. It's like these two different 12-tooth gears and the way they mesh with each other. I feel like that's the mechanism for the turning of the ages in one regard. But many will look for when we precess to the first star or last star, depending on which way you're looking, of the water bearer constellation. That's going to be around 3000 AD. It's a very dim star. We'll precess to the east point to the first bright star of the water bearer around 3300 AD. That's a star called Hydor. So those are all different candidates for the dawning of the age of Aquarius. But maybe we're looking in the wrong place. Isn't it true that the cardinal signs are defined by the cardinal directions, that the tropical zodiac is tied to Gaia's spine? I hope you've seen that now. And if you haven't yet, take a break, learn a bunch of astrology, come back to this video. What if we looked at the spine? What if we looked at the north point, 0 Cancer, the south point, 0 Capricorn? Well, in our day and age, friends, and this only happens like this every 26,000 years, they're aligned to the galactic gateways, the Milky Way. What if we decide to start a sidereal zodiac, not with this bright, beautiful star, Spica, not in any way the brightest star, but rather with like where the Milky Way, our galaxy, crosses the ecliptic, our solar system? Well, if we did, you'd find that this turning of the ages is right now. And if you want to hear more about that, head over to my website, GeminiBrett.com. You can see a bunch of free offerings there at the offerings page. Washington Deciphered, you might dig. The Astronomy of Tropical Astrology, which you've seen a lot of, but not all of. Check that out if you really want to integrate this, okay? But the Turning of the Ages movie, the Sun on the Cross and the Turning of the Ages, will show you more of the alignments right now, 2012 Maya calendar stuff, and other ancient prophecies that seem to say is now, y'all. All right. While you're there, head over to the courses page where you can sign up for Sacred Astronomy for Astrologers Level 1. It's a 6-week transmission with live Q&As and all sorts of amazing things. You're engaged with a long study here, so maybe it's for another time. It'll be there waiting for you. I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of Sacred Astronomy for Astrologers here at YouTube University. It was longer than I thought it would be, but that's also doesn't surprise me much. I'll see you in part 2.